Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Yes, I know I just dropped a Thanksgiving MRE video just a few days ago, but I couldn't let the season go by without doing something really cool and special for the holiday. Sure, I made a homemade MRE and I went and bought a bunch of store-bought pre-made products, but what I wanted to do for this one is to make as much from scratch field ration as possible. And I went over the top with this thing. I wanted this to be something really cool and hopefully impressive, but it is going to be an experiment. And you guys are going to come along for the ride, for better or for worse. Whatever happens, however any of these items turn out, you're going to see the result because the whole thing was an experiment. I have no idea how this is going to work out. And I'm hoping it works because I love the stuff that I came up with for this, and I'm hoping you will too. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to the Dad Budget Adventures Homemade Field Ration Menu TG FR1. FR1 because this is not an MRE, this is a field ration. The big difference in the two, if you're not aware, is MRE stands for Meals Ready to Eat, because all of the components are typically shelf-stable items that can be eaten straight out of the container. They don't require any kind of reconstitution or anything. Field ration is food that's designed to be light and portable, but does tend to require some preparation. A lot of times it's freeze-dried or dehydrated foods. Those require the addition of hot water in order to reconstitute them. So when I went out to make my Thanksgiving dinner, believe me, I sat and thought about this one an embarrassing amount of time. I really wanted to do like turkey and dressing or something like that, but I wasn't really sure, outside of just getting a box of stovetop stuffing and pouring it into a bag, how I was going to make stuffing that I could trust to be shelf stable. So instead of that, I decided to make turkey and rice with seasonings that would kind of mimic the flavors of Thanksgiving. So let's get in here and see exactly what I've got. And our first item in the bag is, of course, that turkey and rice dinner. This is designed to be reconstituted with boiling water. I'm hoping that it will work by just pouring boiling water into the bag, and we're going to test that theory in a minute. But before I go down that road, I'm going to take you over and show you how I made it. The plan for the entree for this particular ration is I wanted to do something reminiscent of a traditional turkey dinner. What I'm going to do is a turkey and seasoned rice. So what I did was I made some turkey jerky. I'm going to experiment with this idea that's been presented before of turkey being rehydrated as a meat base for certain meals. And I created my own turkey jerky. I bought one of these pre-made turkey tenderloins and it was seasoned as a rotisserie flavor, something just a little bit more natural. So I took that turkey tenderloin and sliced it thin and then put it in the dehydrator overnight. Now I did turn it up to the highest temperature I could get this at because I wanted to make sure that it was cooking at a temperature that would not allow for salmonella to develop. That's one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're doing any kind of bird jerky, is that you do have to dehydrate it at a higher temperature. And it turned out pretty good. Look at the way this turned out. I've got the little marks on there from the screens, but it turned out quite good. It smells delicious. I'm gonna try this. As far as homemade jerky goes, that's not bad. But what we need to do is we need to cut this up into very small pieces. I want to make sure that each piece can be properly rehydrated. Let's make up this dish of turkey and rice, and I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do this. All right, so all of our turkey is in there. That's a pretty good substantial portion of turkey, and I really hope that it rehydrates properly, because if it does, this is going to be pretty good. Next up, we're going to throw in a half a cup of minute rice. Now, for those of you that don't know, instant rice is raw rice that's been cooked and then dehydrated. So somebody out there is going to come in and go, well, why didn't you make your own? Well, because it's not efficient and cost effective when I can buy it that cheap, as opposed to running the dehydrator for a couple of days to get that rice properly dried out. So we're just going to use minute rice. The next thing we're going to add some of these dried vegetables from Spices Village. Once again, this is just a dried vegetable mix. You could make this yourself by dehydrating veggies and such, but this is already done. The wife bought it for me so that I could pack small little baggies in some of my meals, and that way I'd have dried vegetables I could throw in there with something if I wanted to. These also have a little bit of seasoning in them, so it's going to add that extra little kick of flavor I was talking about. So we're going to throw some of that in there. Let's get a little bit more. Now, the interesting thing about this is going to be seeing if everything's going to rehydrate properly and at a rate that makes it all compatible. But I think the flavors are definitely going to be there. Next up is going to be some chicken bouillon powder. Now, this is going to be to get all of that flavor all the way through the rice. We want to make sure that there's plenty of seasoning in there so that that rice can really develop that flavor. That smells good. I'm also going to add a little bit of this smoked chili sea salt just to give it a little bit of smokiness and just a little bit of salt. We're not going to need a lot because that bouillon's got salt in it. We're going to shake that down a little bit, let all those ingredients get mixed up together. The last thing is going to be a two-purpose ingredient. We're going to add some cornstarch. A couple of reasons why we're doing that. One is that I want to make sure that the ingredients inside don't all bind up together, and the cornstarch will help keep them separated. At least a little bit. The other reason is that once we add boiling water into this, this will help everything thicken up almost like a gravy. Shake it down gently, get it in there. We want to make sure that we don't shake it so much that food powders come up to this part because we're going to seal this. But we do want to make sure that that cornstarch kind of coats everything in there. So there it is. That is our dry mix for our turkey and rice dinner. Now we need to seal this thing up and put it away. Before we seal it, I'm going to drop an oxygen absorber in there. Just got to remember to take it back out. And there we have it. Our packaged, dehydrated turkey and rice dinner. I am so excited to try this. I really hope it turns out. If it does, this is going to be a stellar success. At best, we'll at least know we can have a good, nutritious Thanksgiving dinner, even in the middle of a disaster. Let's go test this out. So with that out of the way, let's get on to cooking our turkey dinner because I'm so beyond curious about how this is going to turn out. The idea of reconstituting turkey jerky into a turkey dinner for Thanksgiving, it's a little scary, but let's see how this is going to work. First off, we need to get some water boiling. Now I've got more water in there than I need for the turkey dinner because I've got more than one item in here that needs reconstituting. So once this gets boiling, we'll get it added into there and then we'll move on and see what else is in this kit. While that's heating up, let's open this thing up and see how it's held up. It's been a few weeks since I made this. I'm really curious to see what's waiting for me in this bag. Let's get our oxygen absorber out of there. We don't want to cook that. Ooh, it smells really good. I can smell the turkey. I can smell the smoke. I really hope that this reconstitutes because I have a feeling the flavor is going to be amazing. So I'm hoping the texture works too. It's taking a while. I also want to make sure that I'm not just getting the water warm. I want to make sure it's at a rolling boil because I need this to fully reconstitute. I need to make sure that turkey absorbs as much moisture as it can because I really don't want all my turkey to be chewy. I'm not going to try to hold this while I pour the hot water in. That just seems like a formula for disaster. Ow. Because I just dumped some of my fingers. All right, we're adding in 2 cups of boiling water. Close that up. And I'm going to put it in my little insulated bag that came with the trucker's lunchbox. Figured this would be a great way to kind of keep that heat in while it's cooking. Let's scoot that back and let's get back into this bag. Next up, we have an amazing side dish. I made some mashed sweet potatoes. I made these by chopping up some sweet potatoes, boiling them up in water, pouring out the water, then mashing up the contents. Added just a little bit of salt into it, and then I put them in the dehydrator trays and dehydrated them until they could be crushed into a powder. Now, these are not gonna be like sweet potato casserole. There's no butter, there's no milk or any kind of fat that's in there because I wanted them to be able to last longer as a shelf-stable item. We gotta add some boiling water into that, and we'll do that in just a minute. Next up is, this item's a little funny. If y'all remember the video I did for the Thanksgiving MRE, I had some baked snap peas. For this one, I wanted to dehydrate some green beans. And I wasn't really sure what to expect. I've heard people say that you could dehydrate green beans and that they're awesome. This is what I ended up with. People, this is an entire can of green beans. It's like a little bird nest. We're gonna try them, see how they are. These are just fully prepared green beans out of a can that I poured onto the dehydrator and dried them overnight. Next up, we have one of my favorite Thanksgiving treats, and preparing them this particular way has also become one of my family's favorite little extra treats that a lot of people don't get at Thanksgiving. I love cranberries. I don't care if it's jellied cranberry sauce or pokey cranberry sauce. Which do you prefer? Do you like the jelly or do you like the pokies? But I like either one of them. Usually I'll get a little bit of each on my plate at the Thanksgiving dinner table. But for this round, I made dehydrated cranberries. This is jellied cranberry sauce that I sliced into little rings, put in the dehydrator, and now it's kind of like a little gummy candy treat. For a beverage to go with this, I've got one more item in here, but I'm gonna save that for last because I think it's pretty cool. For a beverage, I threw in a pack of the instant apple cider that you guys saw recently. I didn't do a homemade drink. I couldn't really figure out a way to do that. If you've got ideas for how to do homemade drinks in a dehydrator, please let me know. But I threw in a pack of this applesauce and this cinnamon spice tea. And I'm going to blend the two of these into a drink. And finally, the last item in here, this was one that I struggled with. I wanted a dessert with my Thanksgiving dinner, and I just could not come up with anything until this idea struck me. What I have is pumpkin leather. This stuff I made by taking pureed pumpkin, mixing it with equal portions of applesauce, stirring in a little bit of sugar, a little bit of honey, and some pumpkin pie spice. Then I poured them out onto a silicone dehydrating tray and put them in the dehydrator. About halfway through, I just flipped them over, removed the silicone tray, and let them dehydrate the rest of the way. Then rolled them up in parchment paper. And I've got this pumpkin leather. All right, so let's get in here and start trying some of these things. I need to make up these mashed sweet potatoes. So I'm gonna need just a little bit of boiling water in here. And this one, I'm not gonna measure. I'm going to just kind of test it a little bit at a time to see what we end up with. But you can see it's kind of clumpy now because it's been vacuum sealed, but it's just a dry powder. It smells really good though. That cinnamon and sugar is just really popping. This is good. For this one, instead of the wooden sporks, I'm going to use this long titanium spork with the polished bowl that was sent to me by one of my viewers because it can reach down into that bag. So let's get some of this boiling water into our mashed sweet potatoes, and then let's stir it in and let this start reconstituting. So this is going to kind of just be like eating a baked sweet potato. There's not any extra stuff in there. So if you like just plain baked sweet potatoes with a little bit of sugar and stuff on them, then you'll probably like this. All right, that's mixed in. I'm going to close this up for just a minute and let it fully reconstitute. And that's not going to take long. This stuff is kind of like instant potatoes. You don't really have to let it sit for very long, but I do want to give it a chance to fully reconstitute. I am so curious about these green beans. So all these things that are in here, I sealed up using that Beaver vacuum sealer that I got a while back, and it is absolutely perfect for doing this kind of stuff because with these beans, I wanted to make sure that I got all the air out, but I didn't want it to crush them. So I was able to dial that back a little bit and get just kind of a soft packaging for that. Now I bet you could reconstitute these green beans as well, or you could just eat them like this. But my purpose with these was just to kind of have a crunchy little snack. So, I mean, they definitely smell like green beans. It's all, I don't want to say it's a fresh smell, but it's not a cooked smell. So it's almost like, you know, kind of a, you're out in the garden kind of smell. All right, let's give that a try. Hey, those aren't bad. They're a little chewier than I expected, but they do crunch up really well. I didn't add any additional seasoning or anything to them because when you dehydrate things like this, the salt that's already in there gets really concentrated. So if you add a lot of extra salt and stuff like that into things like this, they're just going to end up really, really salty. Those are really good. I like that. That flavor that you associate with green beans also gets really concentrated in these. So if that's a flavor you enjoy, then you'll probably like these. If it's something that you're not really that into, I can see where this wouldn't be your thing. Those are really good. I do want to test something out though. I'm going to get a couple of these out. I'm going to put them in this little jar, and we are going to see what happens when you reconstitute dehydrated green beans. Let's just set those aside for a little while. Let's mix up our beverage. I got the official Dad Budget Adventures bling mug. We're just going to open up this apple cider, pour it in our mug, get out our tea bag, drop it in there, and then use up the last of our hot water to make us a nice, refreshing holiday beverage. Let's let that steep in there a little bit, set it aside for a minute. Let's tear open our cranberry jellies. This was one of those things that, like I said, they've become a favorite around my house. And when I made these, there were some left over that I gave to the rest of the family. And then the next day they were asking when they can have some more. But I wasn't sure how they were going to hold up in this kind of packaging setup. They are a little sticky, so I put them on layers of parchment paper so that they wouldn't all just clump together. And then vacuum sealed them, of course. Look at that. I mean, it looks just like a regular old slice of cranberry sauce. It smells so good though. It does concentrate everything a little bit. It's a much sharper cranberry aroma coming off of that. But let's get a bite of that. Folks, if you have a dehydrator and you've never done this, and you like cranberries, of course, do yourself a favor. Try that. It intensifies that flavor of the cranberries, and you get an extra chew that you don't get with cranberry jelly. If you like fruit leather, if you like gummies, if you like jelly candy, try that. I do think that the next time I do this, though, I might hit that with just a little bit of cornstarch to see if it makes it a little less sticky. Before I try my drink, I need to kind of cleanse the palate from the cranberries a little bit because they are a very sharp flavor. I could very easily sit here and eat an entire can of green beans and not think anything about it. All right, our tea has been steeping in the apple cider for a little bit. And the great thing about this is we don't have to add any sweetener or anything into this tea because that apple cider is going to provide plenty. Let's give that a try. It certainly smells wonderful. That apple cider and the seasoning that's already in that, and then that accent of cinnamon with that tea, I think that's going to be a winner right there. That is so good. It's got a nice warm feel and taste about it. This is definitely one of those things you could sit around a campfire and sip on that. Yeah, that's good stuff. Let's check on our mashed sweet potatoes. That smells so good. It's very thick. Look at this. Look at how that turned out. If you're a fan of sweet potatoes, you can't beat that. Look, if you get sweet potatoes on sale and you don't have any plans to serve them anytime soon, try doing that. If you've got a dehydrator, just dry them out. Then put them in a jar and set them aside. And then when you need sweet potatoes, you can just do that. Let's give this a taste and see if it tastes good and if it's reconstituted well. It smells so good. And of course, you can season them however you want them. You can put a lot of cinnamon or just a little bit of cinnamon or no cinnamon if that's your thing. All right, going in. Y'all, please. That is so good. And I just kind of eyeballed the sugar that I put in here. So I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. It's not overly sweet, but it definitely accents that sweet potato flavor. My goodness. That is so good. Let's close that back up, set it aside, because we need to check on our entree. But I need to do something else first. I need another one of these. I'm gonna zip that back up, let it stay in there for a little bit longer, and make sure that it's good and ready. Y'all, if I had nothing but that bag right there with those mashed sweet potatoes in it, that'd be a happy Thanksgiving right there. That's really, really good stuff. You know what would make this perfect? Where is it? I know I've got something back here. Little leftovers from the charcuterie video. But more of that, nobody's gonna care if this turns out or not. All right, let's test out these green beans that have been soaking in hot water. One of them is looking a little rough, so try one of these other ones. They obviously did not reconstitute the way they started, because if they did, nobody would eat that. So let's give it a try. So reconstituted, they come back more like French-style green beans. They're not bad. Of course, the water that they're sitting in has now gone lukewarm. Cold green beans, not that great. But the green beans themselves are not bad. They're just not as robust as they were when they went into the dehydrator. All right. Let's give our entree a try. One way or another, it's been in there long enough for the rice to cook and for a certain amount of blending of the ingredients and reconstituting to happen. Let's see where we are right now. Remember, we're experimenting here. We're seeing if this is a viable way to make these meals and how they're going to turn out in the end. So it's a little thinner than I had hoped for. I put the cornstarch in there hoping that it would kind of thicken up into a gravy, but it's still very watery. So definitely I'm thinking adding a little bit more cornstarch will help, because I don't think I necessarily want to cut back on the amount of water I'm using, because we are trying to reconstitute a lot of stuff. So let's get us a bite. Let me get some of these veggies, some rice, some of the turkey. This is what we've got. I mean, it doesn't look horrible. looks pretty good, especially if you're taking this to camp with you. All right, let's give this a try. So our rice is done. Our vegetables have reconstituted nicely. The turkey is still a little bit chewy and dry feeling, but it's far from inedible. Our broth is really nice. The flavor, though, reminds me more of those cup noodle meals. I'd hope for more of a stuffing style seasoning, and I didn't put any sage or anything like that in it, but I was hoping for a little bit of a different flavor than what I ended up with, but it's far from bad. So let's get some of this stuff out onto a plate. See if we can plate up something that looks like an appetizing Thanksgiving dinner. All right, it's time. Our trail food or disaster food or campfire food Thanksgiving dinner is ready and plated up. What, you want to see it? Okay. Here we are. We have our mashed sweet potatoes, dried green beans, dehydrated cranberry jelly treats, and our turkey and rice entree. It's not like Mom used to make, but it's a pretty good substitute if you need it. Stuff got hot. So my opinion on this, the sweet potatoes are the bomb. I would do that again anytime. The green beans make for a great snack and aren't too bad as a side. These cranberry leather or cranberry gel candies, those are hard to beat. And if you are at all a fan of cranberries, that's going to become a favorite. The turkey and dressing works in a pinch, but it's flawed. The turkey does not reconstitute as well as I had hoped. I've heard a lot of people talk about using jerky as a meat in your dishes on the trail. If I made this again, I would probably make the jerky and put it in a separate bag, rehydrate that on its own, rehydrate the rest of it, and then mix the two together. But give that turkey plenty of time and heat to rehydrate. But as it is, it's not terrible. You just got to be prepared for anybody you serve it to complain that your Thanksgiving turkey is dry. The flavor balance of the other stuff that's in here, though, is great. Those vegetables rehydrated really well. The rice, of course, you kind of know what you're getting with that. The turkey is really the only outlier in this. You really have to kind of go in managing your expectations and understanding what you're getting with this. You're not getting a grand turkey feast. You're getting some turkey. You're getting your other stuff, but it's going to be a little weird. I mean, that's kind of a great description of this channel, isn't it? Just a little weird, entertaining, but weird. We do have one more thing to try. Let's not forget. We have our pumpkin leather. This seems as good a time as any. If you are enjoying this content, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you can be made aware of all upcoming videos. And as always, much like I'm feeding you guys with all of this great information, feed the algorithm. Leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite item is here. Tell me if you've tried any of this or if you've got a way that I can make that turkey just a little bit better. Or just shout out and say, Happy Thanksgiving. Let's open up our pumpkin leather. The other day when I made this is another one of those things that I made it in a larger quantity and the family got a hold of it and they were raving about how good it is. So what I did really was I wrapped it up in this parchment paper so that it rolls out like this, kind of like fruit by the foot. And we just peel it off like this. And there we have our pumpkin dessert, pumpkin leather. Let's give that a try. It's chewy. It is so chewy. But what a cool way to get that pumpkin flavor that is the perfect way to round out your Thanksgiving dinner. If you don't like pumpkins, but you like sweet potatoes, you can do the same thing with that. There's a whole lot of different fruits that you can use to make stuff like this in your dehydrator. Now, if you'd like to see more of how I made any of these other items that I didn't show in the video, please let me know. Maybe I'll shoot a video and show you how to make some of this other stuff too, or how to do some variation on it. All right, folks, that is it for our fully and truly homemade field ration for Thanksgiving dinner. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned a little bit of something about either using the dehydrator or how to make field rations. Every time I do one of these, I learn from it. So the next time I do it, I'm going to do it better. And if you have suggestions for things that I can do to make more of these field ration meals, please leave me a comment and tell me about it. I did my spaghetti with meat sauce dinner a little while back. This is the second one now I've done in this series, but I do want to explore more of these things. So if you got ideas, leave them. Otherwise, prepare for the world that you live in, not the one you wish existed. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time.